We were blissfully ignorant to what we had to do, and we loved it. He wanted me to personally get to the point of understanding that every single thing on this planet comes from the same source. Consciousness is not spiritual. Consciousness is everything they're seeing. This is not a spiritual thing. This is a tactical business thing. We need authenticity. We don't need heart-centered. You force them to be heart-centered and you may break them.
Today's guest is Charley Johnson, former president of the Pay It Forward Foundation, TEDx speaker, founder of Chief Conscious Officer Training, and a man who walked away from business as usual to redefine leadership through consciousness. Guys, he's not here to impress you. He's here to wake you up. Thank you, Charley, for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for having me, man.
I want to get into your background a little bit. You know, you've been a business owner, you founded the Pay It Forward movement, and now you're pioneering this role of Chief Conscious Officer. What experiences led you, because this is a very unique path, and we'll get into the position here in a little bit, but can you kind of give us a little bit of background that where you begin to think, whether it's spiritually or you know, through self-awareness, how you begin to move in this direction?
Yeah. So we have I'll make this quick. Born and raised in Utah, very religious state, very Mormon.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't, but I also wasn't atheist. I wasn't Catholic. I wasn't Buddhist. I had no frame of reference for any religion or any spiritual endeavor. Truly, it just wasn't a thing. We weren't for it. We weren't against it. Didn't do well with kids my age. So when I was offered a job at the age of 16, I jumped at it because I got to be around adults. Come to find out, I was a lot better around adults. And I really loved being around business and executives because I was learning, absorbing. I was the most ignorant person in the room, and I had no problem with it because in my egoic mind, I was thinking I'm learning things kids in school will never learn, probably 20, 30, 40 years old, right? So I did really well in business. I had no background. I had no college education, blue collar parents. For some reason, I just thrived. The CEO who saw something in me that I didn't see passed away a couple of years into the business on a Saturday. Myself and my partner took over on a Monday. This wasn't a small business, and we were in our early 20s. So we had quite a few adults looking at us wondering if they were going to have their checks cashed. We were blissfully ignorant to what we had to do, and we loved it. If we would have known what was about to unfold over the next 10 years, we probably would have said no, just out of pure fear. Because we had no clue what we were doing. We did well. I was the face, the sales, the marketing, trade shows that. My buddy or my partner was the back end operations. I flew 2 million miles during that time. And then all of a sudden, I developed a fear of flying. Looking back at it now, I always wondered why. Well, it was the universe forcing me out. Knew I would have never left. We would be having these conversations. I would have never gone down the path with a teacher and everything else. So it finally got to the point where I just couldn't function for the business. I wasn't good for it because I wouldn't fly anymore. And I was the face. It just did not work. I left, and then I was on a plane a month later. So it wasn't a fear of flying. It was the universe saying, we got to get you out of here somehow, which goes completely against everything I've ever known because I loved that business. We had a great culture, great company. It was growing like crazy. There was nothing wrong with it. So that made no sense to me. After that, I decided to help with the Pay It Forward Foundation. So I took that over. Traveled the world on a plane, of course. Millions of people involved, tens of millions of kind acts, random acts of kindness. Pay It Forward was really big during that time, 2010 to 2018. You know, all the newscasts have their Pay It Forward segments. There's a Pay It Forward day. There's a lot going on. 150 countries got involved. During that time, I was doing what most of your listeners do. You do self-development, right? And what do we know for self-development? We know all those guys that wrote the books, the Tony Robbins, everything else. And there's a significant amount of coaches who are more than happy to take your money and help you. I was doing the same thing because I thought that was a necessity. They couldn't help me. They just kept telling me they couldn't help me. So again, I was feeling really lost, alone because they were helping everyone else. Everything else was good. Luckily, one of these coaches had a small enough ego to say, I can't help, but I know someone who can. You're asking deeper questions. You need to find a teacher. I was like, oh, okay. I just got out of what do you mean? School, high school, college? What are you talking about? Teacher? Because remember, I don't have any reference of religion or spirituality. She's like, no, like a teacher, like a spiritual teacher. And I was like, interesting. I don't know what the hell that means, but let's try that. I didn't know where to go, nor did she. A couple months later, some old dude in the sauna at the gym came up to me and said, I feel like I've known you from a past life. That was it. Never heard that phrase. Again, never understood Buddhism, Catholicism, nothing. But that verbiage from that individual at that time was like, okay, I don't know what the hell that means, but please tell me more. So he had me read books, taught me about meditation. He and I would meet 2, 3, 4 times a week and just talk. He's 85-year-old dude. He had no one to talk to because he was a Utah boy. His family thought he was crazy for the stuff he was talking about. So he loved talking to me and I loved listening. I met his meditation teacher, started meditating, started to understand kind of what the spiritual path was, but really didn't care what it was. I just knew what I was doing was fun. It was new. It was different. It was something no one else was doing. You getting the theme here? Yeah. So after meeting him, learning meditation, I remember telling him, this isn't it. There's got to be more. I'm not just going to meditate for the rest of my life and change everything. He said, yes, there's another guy that does really high level stuff, but I haven't sent him anyone in a decade. It's like, okay. He's like, I really can't have you wasting his time. I said, you were 3 months out when I met you and I came up the next day and forced you to teach me meditation. Do you think I'm going to waste this time? You saw how aggressive I was with you. You saw how many people I brought to you. Am I going to waste this time? He's like, oh, okay, I got you. I had a phone of Steve Jobs. I had a picture of Steve Jobs on my phone. I just got done reading that Walter Isaacson book. I'm a business guy. I love Steve Jobs. Leave a dent in the universe. When my teacher opened the door, he was a spitting image of Steve Jobs. Wow. So kind of like the fear of flying. I wasn't looking for Steve Jobs. I was looking for this guy. Again, with no frame of reference, I looked at him and said, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. He gave me higher level understanding of meditation, higher level techniques. He had me read books that very few people on the planet read. He was having me read all the religious books, all the big heavy books, all the Buckmaster Fuller's, Audio, all of them, not to cram my head full of knowledge, because we both know, and your listeners know, the mind's already full. It's overwhelmed anyways. The last thing we need is more information. We need clarity. He wanted me to personally get to the point of understanding that every single thing on this planet comes from the same source. He wanted me to understand that Republicans and Democrats are the same. He wanted me to understand that Catholics, atheists, Muslims, Buddhists are the same. He wanted me to understand truth, because I wanted truth. I didn't want my relative individual truth. I wanted to know why such intelligent people could kill each other over a God. I wanted to know why a Republican and a Democrat, both 170 IQ, both Harvard grad, everything, can be at such odds with each other. How can you guys honestly believe the Republicans are ruining the world? And the Democrats believe the Republicans are ruining the world, and the Democrats, I never understood that. I really wish this wasn't my path sometimes, because I wish I cared about other things and just right? So I got an understanding of that, which led to this. Instead of crossing paths with my teacher and leaving the world behind to go meditate for the rest of my life, which most people do, because he can do things you can't even imagine, like just defy the laws of physics type of human beings. And there's some people like that on the planet. I was drawn, kind of like the fear of flying, I was drawn back into the world to embody getting my ass kicked by being this physical reality, being human. It wanted me to stay in this world. So why not bridge the gap? Because the place where the biggest division is happening, which people aren't really paying attention to because we're always paying attention to wars and politics, is the gap between business and the individuals who leave business behind because they think it's evil and they go become spiritual. It's no different. They left religion behind because it was structured and they didn't like it. Well, they just created another religion and spirituality. Like we're not paying attention to how we are as humans. So I wanted to bridge the gap. But the other thing that needed to happen for this position to come about was it needed to be business. We've done wellness programs for 20 years. Does it look like it's working? We have more coaches, more consultants, more books on happiness, more books on life hacks. We're more divided and conflicted than ever. So this position came about because I have a business background, nonprofit background. I have a time with the teacher. I understand all sides of this world. I know how to bridge the gap. I know how to talk business. I know how to talk spirituality. I also know how to bring consciousness into the world for the masses on this planet without it being spiritual, because consciousness is not spiritual. Consciousness is everything physical and non-physical. So if you're religious, that's consciousness. If you're in business and don't care about religion or spirituality, that's consciousness. Your body, consciousness. Your thoughts, consciousness. Just bringing awareness to that. So that's, long story short, that's how this position came about.
That's awesome. You said something, and I want to kind of dive into it a little bit before we get into the actual defining the role that you created. You said our minds are so full that we're seeking clarity. I thought that was really interesting. Seeking clarity. Why do you think do you think this is something that humanity has always sought, or do you think this is now more than ever people are seeking clarity?
Now more than ever. Because what we thought in the past was knowledge is power. Well, okay, if you've got a cup of tea and the tea's full or the cup's full, and you're just saying, I want more tea. Okay, well, it's just going to pour out to the sides.
Right.
Your mind is a very fixed, finite point. People say it's unlimited. Consciousness is, sure shit, the mind's not. Because the mind, NASA did a study, they followed 2,000 kids. When they were 4 and 5, 98% were considered genius. When those kids were adults, it was less than 2%.
Wow.
So we are born into this vast resource of consciousness, and then we choose sides. I am Catholic. I'm atheist. I'm Republican. I hate Democrats. I'm this. This is right. This is wrong. These are my moral. We have taken this vast resource. We cram our minds into this box. We have 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day. We have more information coming at us than ever before. It's overwhelmed. It's overflowing. Okay. So in the past, we've always thought, well, we just need different information. We need different knowledge. It's not being absorbed. And we have done this since the beginning of humanity. We legitimately believe that at some point in the future, my religion's going to win, yours is going to lose, and the world's going to be utopic. My political side's going to win, you're going to fall off the face of the map. And we have done this since the beginning of time. Why is no one discussing what you and I are discussing? Not even discussing. Why is no one aware that we have continuously done the same thing since the beginning and we've expected different results? Thank God, the difference happening right now is consciousness. This shift in consciousness has never, ever, ever been experienced by humanity. And it is forcing people clarity. It is forcing people to understand the mind's just the middleman and it's overwhelmed. It's forcing people to have discussions like this, because if you're like the other hosts I've been on the last 6 weeks, many of them admitted they would have not had me on as soon as 3 months ago. That's how quickly things are speeding up. Because they would have saw consciousness and said, I don't need another spiritual guy on my podcast. But now they're seeing this is not a spiritual thing. This is a tactical business thing. This is going to be 10 times more important than 30 years ago when chief technology officers were hired. Technology took over. Everyone knew it was taking over, but every executive within the organization didn't know how to do a website, didn't know how to code, didn't know how to put a URL. So they hired someone who did. The word consciousness is going to be the central focus of humanity leading forward. As the passing weeks, the passing months, more and more individuals are talking about it, but they're talking about it at a very rudimentary level or a very high level. We need to bring it to the masses so they understand how to tap into it.
I love that, Charlie. So I want to keep on this thread because I think this is so important. You said that, these false beliefs that we have, that we like to put ourselves into these paradigms that are structures that make us feel better. So it gives us like a false sense of clarity. The Republican, Democrat, like you said, those are fading away. So that allows room for us to embrace what's really there, the universe with the consciousness. Is that what's happening? Is the falsehoods, we're seeing it?
So I don't want to call them false beliefs. I don't want to insult anybody because they're not false. If you really believe in a side, that's your reality. That's real to you.
Right. Yes.
Fine. That's fine. That's fine. What's happening is this. We were here. When we start talking about consciousness, when clarity and consciousness on this planet, it's forcing everyone to slowly go like this. All we've known is what comes in front of us right here. And if you're born in Utah, it's going to be a certain way. If you're born in Texas, it's going to be a certain way. If you're born in the Middle East, it's going to be a certain way. We're very conditioned. We're very biased, right? Consciousness and clarity do this. It forces people to say, oh shit, there is other things going on there. The other side might be right. Maybe my beliefs aren't. And again, nothing wrong with that. But when you start to expand and you start to see things more, you're going to see things differently. It's not only an expanded awareness. I'll give you one quick example. If that's like that, and we're driving down, if we're watching this podcast and there's something in front of it, if we're driving down the freeway of consciousness and our windshield has got grease on it, we are guessing at best what's on the other side.
Yes.
When there's clarity, the camera opens, the windshield opens, and we're like, oh, that monster that I was scared about is just a tree. That's a deer. That's a road. Those are other people. Oh, that's the sun. That's a cloud. We're seeing things more clearly. So we're not guessing. We're not having to believe in something. We're having the ability to know what something is. That's just the natural evolution of humanity. It's like a 12-year-old turning 13.
Do you believe it's like Plato's cave, us coming out of it? Like,
Sure.
we saw the shadows on the wall.
All of these examples that people have read. So a lot of people know that reference, right? We've known that reference for quite some time, but nothing's changed because we're like, oh, Plato's right. The cave is right. I completely understand that. Man, those people were so ignorant.
Yeah.
That we are the same way.
Yes, 100%.
Every one of us is the same way. Every time we choose a side, we are creating the same division and conflict that the other side is doing. Same thing. We're trying to make the world better for the kids. We're trying to make it better for the next generation. We believe the other side is ruining the world. They think we're ruining the world and vice versa. We're not getting anywhere. Can we please just do something different? Can we please at least have a conversation about consciousness and clarity? Can we please just admit that both sides are creating the same division and conflict that the other side is? Just to bring that awareness, just to plant the seed.
No, I love that. And I want to get into the role of chief conscious officer. Let's take an extreme. Constellation Brands, Budweiser, those, would they benefit from a role of chief conscious officer? Why would they even consider that? Why are these Fortune 500 or Fortune 100 companies even going to take a stab at this?
I don't really care if it's for selfish reasons.
Like optics or something like that.
Yeah, I don't really care, because if we can Trojan horse ourselves in to a brand or a culture like that, I've seen what happens. I've seen what people, when they cross my path on a very high level spiritual, I see what happens. I see what happens in business. I see when I meet someone at the grocery store, or someone's on my soccer team, or I'm meeting someone for the first time. Just the simple shift in the way I observe things, the way I question things, and the most important, which we haven't brought up yet, neutrality. Do you know anybody who's neutral?
No.
Okay, there you go. So can you imagine how priceless that is for an individual, for a group of people, for politics, for a company like Budweiser or any of those? Having someone on staff who will naturally impact the clarity of every employee in their company from a neutral standpoint. We say to each their own. We say to agree to disagree. But consciously or subconsciously, we know what side we've chosen. And if we're pushed into a corner, we're coming out swinging. Within a business setting, we force rules upon ourselves to say we're not going to talk about that. But deep down, Susie and Ed know they don't like each other because one's Trump, one's Biden. And Susie can come up with a great idea and Ed's going to hate it just because she's a Biden girl. That's been happening since the beginning of time. It hasn't changed. And yet we keep thinking the world's going to get better with technology. And it's not. Luckily, consciousness is shifting things up. This position is more important than a chief technology officer, and any company, small, medium, or large, even a startup, would benefit from this, because this individual is going to be like a Google of consciousness. They're going to be neutral. They're going to look to you when you ask for advice, when you ask about strategy, when marketing comes to you looking for different ideas. They're going to be wide open to the whole. They're going to be able to see everything, the whole story, and give you advice that is going to be beneficial for everyone in the organization, every marketing, every employee involved. They are not going to come from a biased Republican image or a biased Democratic vision. They're not going to come from a certain religion. I don't mind either side. I don't have a dog in the fight. Understands consciousness, understands the shift on the planet, understands what we are, is neutral, and can help and become a secret weapon for every C-suite executive within the company.
Yeah, I love that. Chief conscious officer, embracing our shared humanity, not getting into these back and forths.
Well,
Because we've seen this swing, like, there'll be a commercial. This is, this is cool now. So now we're going to go this way. And then 4 years later, we go this way, So what are you saying? Like, embracing shared humanity, chief conscious officer, kind of define the role.
This role reports to the CEO, but doesn't have authority over any other brand or any other branch in the organization, because they've got to be neutral in that sense as well. So once every C-suite executive understands what this position really can hold, they get direct examples of what this person, this man or woman, can do within meetings for ideas, for advice, for clarity, for helping everyone in the room start to release the division and conflict within their mind. They become a secret weapon. And this individual within the organization will not have enough time in the day, because everyone will be vying for their time. They're going to want them around at meetings. They're going to want them around at trade shows. They're going to want them around in all the traveling they do. They're going to want them in customer service. They're going to want them at the watering hole, just talking to people, bringing that level of consciousness up. And the greatest example I have is, do you remember the movie Cooler with William H. Macy?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
People in like Vegas, they hire people to come in with really low energy to stop a hot table.
Right. Yes.
That's a legit thing, because what are more people talking about? Whether they're super religious, spiritual, whether they're scientific or very skeptic, it's all energy, right?
Yes.
So they would bring William H. Macy in to cool down a table to stop someone on a hot streak. Okay, well, the chief consciousness officer does the polar opposite. Everyone's consciousness is here. You've got this everyone's here with this very limited resource, right? I'm not biased. I'm not conditioned. I'm perfectly neutral. So when I walk into a room, my consciousness is greatly expanded. It engulfs the whole room. It removes the blocks. It removes the walls. It brings down the conflict and division within the room between Ed and Susie and whoever else. It opens people up to be okay with this new world, this new level of consciousness, these new level of seeing things. And the greatest thing about this position is it becomes the individual who comes up with the idea because they're starting to see things more clearly. They're expanding their own awareness and they're going to come up with new ideas, new ways to see things, new ways to talk about things, new ideas for marketing, for sales, for human resources, whatever it is. That's the greatest thing about this position. That position doesn't tell them what to do. It allows them to become their own answer, their own way of moving forward with more clarity.
So is this kind of more of like a consultant type role where you're walking into the room with the C-suite and they're having a 3-day retreat and you're there, and so you're kind of facilitating?
No, it's a full-time position, day to day in, day out, with all the executives in meetings with the watering hole. This is not a consultant thing. We have enough coaches. We have enough consultants. We've done the wellness program for 20 years, right? It's gotten really aggressive with mindfulness and meditation and yoga and Tai Chi. My question always to that is, how does the business landscape look? We've never been more divided and conflicted, right? What we missed is understanding the consciousness. What we missed is the level of consciousness. What we missed is what someone's beliefs were before the wellness program came in. So I can promise you, within most of these organizations, there's a significant amount of Catholics that when they were told to meditate or be mindful, they thought it was Buddhism and they were completely turned off to it and didn't participate.
Right. Yes.
I know that sounds childish. I know that sounds ignorant, but I can promise you that was the reality. So these wellness programs where their heart was in the right place and HR did it for the right reasons and CEO signed off on it thinking it would be better for retention, less burnout. We've never had more burnout. We've never had worse retention rates. We've never had more articles and people and employees just losing their damn minds because there's too much going on. Okay.
Right. Yes.
So these wellness programs didn't work like they thought. Everything we're doing is a wellness program is a leaf of a tree. The leaf of the tree is right here. This is the only tool we've ever been given. This is the only tool we've ever known. It's the only tool we've ever used. This is the middle man. You can't stress this enough. Everything consultants, coaches, and self-development talks about is at the level of the mind. Mental health, mental edge, be like a Navy SEAL, mental. The same mind that creates the problem cannot solve it. This is what created the problem, and everyone thinks this is going to be what solves it. No. This is the middleman. Don't we want to deal with the source? Don't we want to understand what consciousness is? Because it's going to become the central focus of humanity very shortly. It already is. It's already been there. We're just not paying attention to it. We need to get to the source, and we need to let customer service there, middle managers there, executives there, the CEO there. This is not a spiritual thing. This is not relegated to just the individuals who are on the spiritual path. Consciousness is everything physical and non-physical for 8 billion people on this planet and outside this universe. Just hearing that changes everyone's perception of what consciousness is.
So this is more of like I don't want to say agnostic, but more, because I know in your book, Truth Has No Sides, you talk about how to navigate polarization. So this is what we're doing. We're navigating these polarizations and conflicts in the sense, and this chief conscious officer is allowing people, embracing, we'll use your Catholic example. We're not going to have you meditate. We're not going to do any of those things. This is the direction we're going to have you go. Explain that, because I want leaders to get this. I want them to really understand this. I get where you're going with it, but I want them to be understanding it kind of in detail. When you say it's okay to be Catholic, that's not a false belief, and it's all here, but we've got to wrap into consciousness. Everybody instantly goes woo-woo. You know what I mean? So how can Susan in customer service, she's the customer service director, how can she, because if you elevate everyone's consciousness in customer service, that's amazing. You're going to turn around the company.
See, that's what I ask CEOs. Do you want 6th graders or 4th graders as your employees? Well, they're going to say 6th graders because they can communicate better. They don't believe in Santa Claus anymore. They are a little bit better, more self-sustaining. They understand math better. They can use a computer more, everything about it. That's the subtle shift happening on this planet right now. And that's the subtle shift that this position would do for everyone within the organization. And when everyone says woo-woo, listen to how I'm discussing this. It's not spiritual, it's tactical. It's just a matter of shifting the conditioning. Everything I'm saying, I'm not part of the wellness program. This is not about meditation. They're going to start getting that. So we got to start somewhere. We can't just continuously say this is woo and it's not. This is not spiritual. If a Catholic comes and says they want to better understand their own Catholicism, they want to better understand their God, etc., consciousness will do that. You want to better understand your job so you can make more money and help yourself pay the mortgage, consciousness will do that. What is your intention? What do you want from this? What do you want? What do you want to get past this middleman? Do you want to get back to the source? This will help you in whatever you want on this time on this planet. Consciousness will shift everything within that organization, from customer service to sales to marketing to HR to finance to CEO. Everyone will be impacted immediately Immediately. When these companies finally start hiring this position, they're going to wonder how they ever dealt without it. Or they're going to do it kind of quietly so their competition doesn't understand the superpower and the secret weapon they've just created. This is not a spiritual thing. This is a tactical thing. Consciousness has already been within this business, in the business world, since the beginning. You've had a blank check and you've cashed it for $100. If I had a blank check, I'm cashing it for $1 billion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And here this is apparently part of my mission on this planet. Is you ask, how did we get here? It gets to the point sometimes where it's just exhausting, but someone has to bring this to the attention, the different levels of consciousness, and it has to come from a non-spiritual sense. I'm not trying to get everyone on the spiritual path. I don't really care what your path is. I don't care what your political ideas are. I don't care what religion you believe in. I don't care. I'm just trying to really help shift clarity for the benefit of the masses, not people who are on the spiritual path, not the executives who go to a 10-day silent retreat. I'm talking everyone within the organization, because most executives do some of this work, right? But there's no way it infiltrates down to the customer service, because they don't know how to talk about it. They don't know being experienced. They don't know they don't understand consciousness. So have someone on staff who can bridge that gap, because the gap is widening. Let's just talk about that. The gap between executives and employees, the gap between politics.
Yes, it is.
In this world, the conflict is widening. This position becomes the bridge for anything they want within the organization.
Yeah, because I mean, even when you look at the average tenure of a CEO is 4 years, those underneath him are 2 years, and then they're getting another round in 2 years. There's no impact there. You're just shuffling from quarter to quarter. If that makes sense. So I understand this. This is amazing. This seems like it's much needed. And I know it has to be aggravating for you. Maybe you don't get aggravated because of your level of consciousness. When you're coming into these organizations and having a conversation with them, what are some of the questions? Because these are going to be the same questions that the leaders are asking right now. What are some of the questions that they're bringing to you?
The exact questions you're asking. Tell me why I'm going to spend a small fortune on your salary. What do you mean by consciousness? How is your impact? What are you going to do on a day-to-day basis? If you're not going to consult and just come in for 4 weeks and then leave, like, this is the education. This is why on LinkedIn, this is why I want to, when you say what's the best way, I want them on LinkedIn so they can see the interviews like this. They can see what this position is, and they can see specifically what this position's not. These questions are all relevant because this is a brand new position, right? And we're talking about something that they probably have never heard of. Technology was a lot easier. I need a chief technology officer. Everyone's doing a website. We got to do this. Consciousness is going to be a harder sell, but that makes it even more impactful. If I'm a medium to good sized company, I know I have the funds to do this. And it's more of almost like a fear of missing out.
Right.
You listen to me talk about this very succinctly, very clearly, very passionately. I can't get involved with something unless I really understand it and I really care about it and it's the right thing to do. And that's been to my own detriment. I'm waiting for the world to catch up with this because I've been ready for quite some time.
You've gained clarity on this.
The world is ready. And how I can tell you by the world's being ready, how chaotic it is. Everyone thinks this is the end of something. This is the beginning of consciousness. This is the beginning of companies waking up to this. This is the beginning of all of the good we've talked about in the past, because before creation comes destruction. This is an individual that's in every meeting who does all the traveling, everything else. All these questions are relevant, and they're going to come from a question at the level of the mind, and they're going to understand at their level of their mind. But I'm going to need to figure out a way, like I'm packaging this, the way I'm discussing it, I have to talk to them at their level. That's perfectly fine. So this is a business understanding. This is a tactical understanding. This position is going to help you with strategy, Mr. CEO. This is going to help CFO. It's going to help you with finance and see things you've never seen before. HR, it's going to help you hire the right people. Marketing, you want more creative ideas? What did Einstein say? Where did he come up with all of his creativity? He tapped into his cosmic self. You know Steve Jobs, Mr. CMO? Yeah, he tapped into his cosmic self. What is that? That's consciousness. I can help you do that. Sales, customer service, everything is consciousness, and everything we've done as a company and individuals is right here. This is going to expand.
You said legacy isn't built from ego, it's built from essence. When you are doing this Chief Conscious Officer training, and I encourage everyone, we'll have the LinkedIn links and all that stuff there. When you're doing this Chief Conscious Officer training, how because most business is done with ego.
That's fine. That's fine. That's the issue of this not being spiritual. That's the issue of bringing in a wellness program. That's the issue of bringing in someone who's wearing loose-fitting white clothing and mala beads and telling everyone it's all one.
Right.
We have to understand they're thinking everyone's going to the top with them. That's not what they don't care about that. We have to understand the individual's level of consciousness. If it's full ego, we can subtly shift it. We can take it from 5th grade to 7th grade. That subtle impact on a universal level within an organization, within the individual, is more impactful than you could ever fathom. Ego is fine. If I say, hey, Jace, you're still going to turn and say, what? What do you need, man? Getting rid of ego is not possible. That's the other thing this position understands. People hear all of this woo-woo stuff, this meditation, get rid of the ego, money's bad, but you need to be like, no. If money makes you happy, let's figure out how to get you more. If the relationship's going to fill that hole in your heart, we're going to find that relationship. If this business is all you care about, you're passionate about it, and you care about profit and creating jobs, that's what we're going to go after. But we're going to do it in a more conscious way. We need to understand that the levels of consciousness on this planet are drastic. That's the biggest thing. It's not about, there's so many consultants talking about being more heart-centered. That's fine. But you take a 2nd grader and you put them in high school, they're going to get their ass kicked. They need to have a girlfriend and drive a car. They still believe in Santa Claus. They still care. You can't do that. And
well, it's fake anyways. Everybody's going to be fake heart-centered. It's like empathy. Empathy, it doesn't work.
No. There are people like that. There absolutely are people like that. But they are part of all of the consultants, all of these organizations their heart's in the right place. They really are. I'm not saying
Right.
But you can't take a 2nd grader and attempt. These organizations talking about being heart-centered, they're missing the levels of consciousness. They're trying to force something on a CEO or a C-suite executive. They just don't have the capacity to do yet. So let's take them from 2nd grade to 4th. You put a 2nd grader into high school, it's not working out well for you, for me, and those heart-centered organizations, because that person's going to crumble. We need authenticity. We don't need heart-centered. What did they say the highest vibration on this planet is? It's not love. It's authenticity.
Right.
So again, everyone's hearts, the Catholic's heart's in the right place. The heart-centered consultants in the right place. Everyone's hearts, we're missing the root of the issue. Someone's got to go one question deeper and say, what is the level of consciousness of the CEO? Can they be heart-centered? Probably not. That's perfectly fine. We can raise their level of clarity so they can be at least a little bit more compassionate, empathetic, and stop being such an asshole to the employees. And the employees will notice that. We need to subtly shift people to a level they can handle, just like this computer. If it's Windows 11, I could probably get to 13 and 14 until the computer shuts down. You go from Windows 11 to Windows 20, the computer's not going to work. We've got to understand levels of consciousness. This is where my clarity, this is my neutrality comes in and says, I know the person, I see this person, I see where they're at, I see the questions they ask, I see the books they read, I see their beliefs. I know exactly where they're at consciously. This is the best thing for them. You force rumination on them, it may not be good. You force them to be heart-centered and go to a 10-day silent retreat, you may break them. So you've got to pay attention to that. That's
No, Charlie, this is really, really good. So, give a prime example. You mentioned Steve Jobs. He was a meditating asshole.
There you go.
So, yeah.
But he was authentic and he did incredible things. He did amazing things, right? Some people thought he was an asshole. Some people thought he was a visionary. Some people thought he was a kind guy. It doesn't really matter.
But he was authentic. That's where you're going at.
We need authenticity. We need more authenticity. And again, we need to understand levels of consciousness. If we try to force people to be something they're not or handle something they can't, that's worse than what it was before. Worse.
It already feels good when you said that. When you use the word authenticity, I felt like not so much pressure. So, and I would think other leaders are feeling that right now. When I talk empathy, that's kind of tough. When I talk, teamwork and all these buzzwords, now, we just got through this whole shift of DEI, and then trying to navigate through all those rules and regulations,
Yep.
When you say authenticity, I want to stay there. So the chief conscious officer is just wanting everyone to be their best selves and understand gain clarity on consciousness. Is that his or her job?
Yeah, that's back to what we just said, to be their best selves. To be their best selves means in this incarnation, within this body, within this business, this specific business that we need to create less division and conflict, taking someone from 5th grade to 7th grade is going to be incredibly impactful. Taking someone from 5th grade into college, going to be worse. It's just going to be worse. Now let's look at the universe. How subtly and how long has it taken humanity to get to this point where consciousness is actually really shifting us? Thousands and thousands.
Yes.
The universe knows how subtly we need to shift. Right? We need to do that on a human level. Forcing people to be something they're not is worse. We have to be authentic. So consciousness, when the individual understands they are consciousness, knowledge is structured in consciousness, so they have access to all of that knowledge, their full potential is unleashed. You can't release the full potential here. This is a very limited thing. This is the reason why there's so much division and conflict. You want to release their full potential? Have them understand they can go past this and use this as a servant and not a master.
So the chief conscious officer, I want to understand this specifically. The chief conscious officer is coming in to unlearn leaders in this era of consciousness shift to be able to understand that. How can we prevent, I know with the training that you do, because there's some people that are listening to this that are really interested. We have thousands of leaders listening to this. There's going to be some that are going to be like, I would like to be a chief conscious officer. They're going to feel something. What does it look like if somebody's feeling that right now? Specifically, I kind of want to narrow down the position a little bit more for someone that may be interested in.
What does it look like? What is that position?
Yeah, but I mean, like, so okay, we'll just use me for example. Okay, Jason's interested in this. I'm going to go to LinkedIn. Obviously, I'm going to DM you or grab a link or something like that. Walk through the steps of someone becoming a chief conscious officer.
Well, I've had hundreds thankfully because of people like you who have allowed this to start being seen by hundreds of thousands of people. Right, I've done 50 of these podcasts within the last 6 weeks. So there is attraction, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, there's quite a few of you guys that said, I would not had you on 3 months ago. Something's happening on this planet and you can feel it. So because of that, hundreds of people have messaged me and said, this is my dream job. What does this look like? Well, they're starting to get an understanding of what this position is and what it's not. The main thing with this, if there is an individual that comes and crosses my path with this, there's not going to be the typical 10-step program that everyone else does on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be a structure, because I know people love structure and we've got to do it. The structure is what creates the division and the conflict. The structure is what we've got to break out of. So this position is this. I'm going to have conversations with men and women, and I'm going to break down the books they read. I'm going to break down what their beliefs are. I'm going to break down what they really think. I'm going to ask them. It's going to be more me of asking them questions because I need to understand their level. And then we're going to start talking about neutrality. And they're going to tell me they're neutral. Then I'm going to say, well, who'd you vote for? Okay, perfectly fine. Are you okay letting that go? Are you okay letting your stance on certain views go? Can you legitimately be neutral? And as much as I thought there are a significant amount of people who are quite neutral, because neutrality doesn't get attention in this world.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah,
neutrality doesn't get. If someone on CNN comes out and goes against Trump, they're going to get attention. If that one podcaster who is completely against Democrats comes out, the polarity. You need to choose a side and you're going to make a lot of money. Neutral, you're kind of standing in the middle and no one's paying attention. But neutral is the way forward because the polarity is stripping people away. And CEOs are smart enough to see that their company's becoming very divided. They're going to want someone like this on staff to bridge that gap because no other side's going to bridge that gap. That's the other thing. Imagine having a chief consciousness officer in politics on a senator's staff or a congressman's staff to truly start really planting those seats. But the position, the training is just discussions. They need to better understand what this position is. They need to better understand truly what neutrality is. They need to understand what consciousness is. They need to understand the sides they've chosen in the past are creating just as much division and conflict. They need to understand the question of what's better, heads or tails. Well, it's the same. Yeah, exactly. Then why are you choosing sides? Okay. Like just planting the seed. This is as much to me as how simple this is, how clear this is, how I can't believe this isn't happening. For most, the construct of what they've been built off of, this is like brand new. This is like the final frontier. This is something like, no, hold on. The Democrats are ruining the world. Well, they think you're ruining the world. I've had so many people cross my path and we have that discussion. Their mind's like a computer. It freezes. They just turn and walk away. They're not right. They're not upset. They don't yell at me. They don't argue with me. They just can't compute it. That's perfectly fine. Someone's got to plant that seed. Someone has to understand since the beginning of time of humans, we've created division and conflict and it's got to stop. Or we've got to minimize it. We've got to get to the point where we slowly minimize it and we become, when we're aware of it, when we know better, we do better. Just simple stuff. So what this position does for the training are these discussions. I'd have them watch these discussions. We would talk a couple times a week just to slowly start to integrate what this position really is and how neutral they really need to be to have an impact.
Because you can't have an old system and do the training based off of an old system. Like you said, here's the 12 steps, here's this, here's that. So there has to be something totally new. And I know, corporate, it's interesting. My mind's like really going right now. What should the first thing you would do? So if a CEO's listening to this and they're interested, should they contact you to find a chief conscious officer? How does I'm kind of getting more tactical with it all, but
they're a CEO and they legitimately want to take this seriously and they have the budget on hand, hire me. Now, let me come in and show you
Mm.
This is like a startup in a sense. This is like investing in a startup, right? Invest in this position and let's see if it pans out. I'll put my life on it.
Right.
You can put your money behind it. I'll put my life on it that it'll impact your company. And I'll impact every single level at every employee. Just give me time. Let me wander. Let me be in meetings. Let me have an email. Let me be with customer service. Let me be with marketing. Let me be with sales. Let me start having these conversations with every C-suite. Let me help them understand I'm not a threat. I have no authority over them. I report to you, Mr. or Mrs. C. Let me show you what this position does. Let me help you understand at a very organic company level what consciousness is, because you're swimming in it right now and you're utilizing 1% of it. Do you want to utilize 10% of it? 100% of it? This is what you can do.
That's amazing, because who would not want to have employees that have greater self-awareness and have higher consciousness? If I ask that question to anybody.
Exactly. So what do they usually do? They go work on 10 executives, and then it takes because they're already busy individuals. Do you think that trickles down to customer service?
No, not at all.
No, because they go do that clarity and that training, the self-awareness training. In a sense, it almost gives them an edge of clarity to manipulate and control the customer service anymore. That's the issue, because then customer service really starts to break away. Well, you think you're more clear now. You think you're better. No, I can still feel your bullshit. It needs to be done at every single level of the company. Has to.
You're so right. I see that with tech because there's so many silos. The C-suite may be doing 10-day silence retreats and doing meditation and doing all these great, and have, gongs in their office and super spiritual. And then sales is, sharks. And then legal, oh my God, they're the devils, so.
True.
And you see these silos you're talking about coming in there. What does sales look like with greater consciousness and self-awareness? You know what I mean? That's wild.
Well, no, what you're saying now. So here's the thing. This position is not going to come in and attack anyone. They're not going to attack themselves. They're not going to attack legal because they're so.
No, it's neutral.
They're going to come in and just simply observe. Oh, okay. I really understand what you're saying. I'm not going to stop that. I want this company to be profitable. I want everyone to have a job. Legal, but I can promise you we're going to have a lunch one time, and something I'm going to say or something they're going to hear is going to subtly shift them. It's going to subtly shift them. And then sales, the sharks, that's fine. Continue to be sharks. If that's what you think you need, continue to do that. But let's expand awareness. Maybe we don't have to be as sharky. Or maybe we need to be a little bit more aggressive. I don't know. All I'm saying is, from a neutral standpoint, I'm not coming in to change or shift or push someone to be something that they're not. I'm not
of course, right.
Meditate, or I'm not telling the sharks to be more heart-centered when they don't have a heart. That's perfectly fine. I'm not telling legal to be less legal. I'm just telling you, at a very subtle level, when you start to understand what consciousness is, you start to understand, you see the division and conflict minimizing, you are personally going to shift how you see the world. And you're going to personally shift how you write those contracts, how you approach sales, how you approach marketing, how the CEO and his gongs within his office, who now he's Buddhist, but he was Catholic, how he does approach customer service rather than them just being an employee, or that they're Catholic and he's Buddhist now. Minimize that. Just minimize that. Having this position is like having a legit like having a coach on staff at all times, having a teacher on staff at all times for everybody, not just the well-paid executives.
No, I love this. There's I don't know. Did you ever see the show Billions? Yeah, there's a lady that was the psychiatrist. Yeah, Wendy. This is kind of, in a weird way, kind of reminding me of this.
So that's happened probably half a dozen times in the past week. That's a great example that continuously comes up, right? But Wendy still had hers.
Curse, right.
So this is not a therapist thing. This is not a original thing. This is an individual who legitimately is just going to allow that person to shift on their own just by being around them, being around in their presence. If I need to be a Wendy in a moment, I'll get people fired up. If I need to observe, I'll observe. If I need to help someone with strategy, I'll help someone with strategy. If I just need to listen, great. If I need to push someone to see things in a little bit different way, to minimize division and conflict, I'll do that. This is a secret weapon. This is a legit secret weapon for everyone within the organization.
No, I get it. I understand it completely. This is amazing. Last question, because we're on the top of the hour.
Okay.
Whenever you look at the landscape now, especially when you're looking at humanity and humans, I kind of want to go macro. What do you think someone could do that maybe they feel more heartfelt? Maybe they have a sense of consciousness and they're working in a business, or they're a C-suite. It doesn't matter. What do you think they could start doing today to be able to, not only enhance their consciousness, but them to help humanity?
Understand what consciousness is. Do what they're drawn to. If they like the type of pay it forward stuff, they want to buy someone's coffee. If they want to help Ed and Susie get along. If they want to just leave a compliment for a co-employee. If an executive does want it. See, here's the difference. And here's the thing, that when people hear you and I discussing, they think I'm against a lot of the things that are happening. I'm not. If the executive wants to do a 10-day silent retreat, please do it. If customer service wants to help one of their employees, please do it. Everything that every individual is doing now, if they want to start meditating, if they want to change, if they want to go on the spiritual path, if they want to jump away, if they want to leave the company because money's for the birds now, I'm not telling anyone to stop doing what they're doing. This is an ongoing evolution of the individual's consciousness. They don't know why that's happening. So this position helps them understand this is consciousness. This is not the mind. Nothing's wrong. You're going to start thinking different things. You're going to start asking different questions. You're going to have doubts and fears that you've never had your entire existence. Having someone on staff like this will tell them nothing's wrong. You don't need to get divorced when you leave the company. There's nothing wrong.
Right.
Truly.
Right.
This is what
No, I get that. Yeah.
a lot of people having this individual on staff. Whatever you're drawn to in this moment, whatever you have felt in your heart, don't hesitate on that. Tell someone they look good. Buy someone lunch. Go talk to your co-employee that you think like, man, something's off today. Go ask them if they're okay. If you're an executive and you do have the resources and you do want to go do a retreat or psychedelics or whatever, go do that. Whatever you think you should do, there's a natural pull in the universe that's pulling you. Don't hesitate. But then when you come back to the business, you've got someone like me on staff. I can discuss anything you want to discuss at any level. Truly, you imagine having someone like that on staff. A CEO goes and does a psilocybin retreat, and then they never see that person again. You're going to have someone on staff who knows this stuff at a very incredibly high level, who's had the teacher discuss it. If you're customer service and you're starting to you just want to maybe do some mindfulness or some meditation, but you don't want to talk about it, you don't want to do it from their wellness, you can talk to me. CEO wants to talk about strategy and go after some of their competition in a different way, you can talk to me. You're having someone on staff that's basically like a ChatGPT for consciousness. Just this neutral that I'm just absorbing what they're asking. I'm absorbing who they are. I'm absorbing what they read. I'm absorbing the questions they ask. And then it's coming from a neutral standpoint that just says, okay, I think this might work for you guys.
Well, that doesn't happen. No one comes from a neutral standpoint.
No. So imagine.
Not nowadays.
What this is.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
This is.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. This is awesome, Charlie. I want to end it and make sure that we get, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way? If they want to look at your training, what's the quickest and easiest way for them to touch base with you?
Through LinkedIn. I really want them to watch LinkedIn. I want them to watch the post. I want them to see what this position is, what it's not. LinkedIn. I'm just going to give you LinkedIn. I don't want to.
Yeah, I'll have that link right below the show notes here.
Thank you.
Well, awesome, Charlie. This is great. I appreciate you dealing with, for me, it would seem like the frustration of starting something that is bringing conscious awareness to humanity. And you're entering, do you realize you're entering the Fortune 100, Fortune 500s? That's the hardest. It's not like you could just be a guru and go have retreats and draw people, you pick the hardest thing to penetrate.
That's one last thought. This is not a teacher guru thing. This is not about retreats. This is not about the few that are on the spiritual path who can afford it. For something in my consciousness, in my realm of this incarnation, it's about the masses. And if I have to Trojan horse it through a company, through the executives to get to the vast majority of the middle management and customer service, that's perfectly fine. But this is for raising the level of consciousness for everyone, not just the people who think they can afford it for a $10,000 retreat with a guru who supposedly knows what. No, we have been doing that. It's not working like people think. There's so much division. We need to get to the common man and woman and let them know that consciousness is available to them and always has been. Always.
I love that. Well, thank you, Charlie. I appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to have everything in the show notes. It was absolutely awakening for me, and I learned a ton. So thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Jace. Thanks for allowing this message to get out.